coming on the air with the country bracing for protests and demanding justice for Tyre Nichols. Because in the next couple hours, we're expecting to see what's being called the appalling, the horrific, the alarming video of his death at the hands of police. What we're hearing tonight from the Memphis police chief and Nichols' family with new calls to break up the unit that stopped his car in the first place. Plus, the new reaction we're getting tonight from former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi after the first footage has been released of the attack on her husband. What we're also learning from the 911 call released today. And part of my conversation with an HIV/AIDS expert on this new FDA guidance that would let some gay and bisexual men donate blood, seen as both a mark of progress and a sign of a long way to go for equity. We're getting into that controversy. Plus, and you know we got to cover this one, 2 big games on Sunday to decide who's headed to the Super Bowl. So we're taking you live to my home state of PA, where the fans, they are singing Fly, Eagles, Fly. And the new TV show, based on a video game that has skyrocketed to the top of the charts, how The Last of Us could be upending what we know about the TV business right now. That's later on in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and listen, we have not seen the kind of thing that we are seeing tonight, with a nation on edge, Memphis holding its breath, and officials all but coming out outright and saying that the footage set to be released tonight is so bad, it is so horrific, that it is basically inevitable that people will have to protest from it. That's why they're waiting until folks get home from work, from school, to release it because of safety concerns, they say. People who have seen this footage of Tyre Nichols in some kind of altercation with 5 police officers compare it to the Rodney King video more than 30 years ago, saying Nichols was treated like a human piñata, that his last words were him crying out for his mom. The 29-year-old died later at the hospital. With the Memphis police chief today telling our own Tom Yamas that those officers, now fired, charged, and out on bond, that they went too far.
How would you describe the energy of the officers that pulled over Tyre Nichols?
On a scale of 1 to 10, they were at a 10.
Is that not police protocol?
No. It's not police protocol. I've been in this business for 36 years, and a lot of the aggression and, the approach was over the top.
So now the nation waits to watch, or maybe to not watch, considering how triggering, how disturbing we think this is. Schools in Memphis even canceled after-school activities today so kids would be home. They would get home before this is released. Even President Biden himself today calling Tyre Nichols' parents. You're going to hear him on speakerphone in this video from the Washington Post.
On your comments today were moving. I don't know how you did it with Rodney. I know Tyre's dad is devastating.
Yes, sir.
These are the 5 former Memphis police officers who have all been charged with second-degree murder, among other charges. And you heard the president reference the comments from Tyre Nichols' family. They're saying today they're pleased with these charges, but they want peace tonight.
We want peace. We do not want any type of uproar. We do not want any type of disturbance. We want peaceful protests. That's what the family wants. That's what the community wants.
All of it is now reigniting this conversation around police accountability and police brutality against Black Americans. I want to bring in Priscilla Thompson now with what it is like on the ground there, because we are getting closer and closer to when this footage will be released. There are significant reasons why it is so important for people to see it, right? Because it may answer some key questions, but it is also extremely understandable to hear from people who say they don't want to watch it. They don't want to watch another Black man die at the hands of police.
Yeah, Hallie, and that's exactly what I've been hearing from people here today. There are still a ton of unanswered questions, and we heard the district attorney say he feels like a lot of those answers will be made clear when this video is released. But at the same time, the activists that I've spoken to on the ground here who have really been leading the charge on this and protesting and ensuring that this case gets action, 2 of the people I spoke to said that they don't plan to watch this video, that they don't need to see a Black man being beaten by police in order to believe that it happened. They know that it happened because they saw the photo that his family released. They see the grief that his mother, Tyre Nichols' mother and stepfather, are going through right now in all of this. And so they say they don't intend to watch the video. And that is really the mood on the ground right now. It is a mix of grief. There's also, of course, relief that these officers have been charged, but there's still a lot of anger, and there's there's still a call for more transparency and more answers about how all of this happened. Hallie?
So we talk about some of the questions that may be answered by the release of this footage here, and it seems like key among them is how long it took these officers to call for help once it was clear that Mr. Nichols was not responsive, that he didn't have physical control of his body. We don't know what that answer is. We've heard allusions to this from the district attorney, who suggested that there was some waiting around that happened, but that is one of the central pieces of information that we just don't know yet.
Right, and that is a huge question. When our Tom Yamas spoke with Attorney Crump and the family, I was in the room, and Attorney Crump said that what is just as concerning as the beating that he saw in that video is the amount of times that Tyre Nichols slumped over and someone pulled him back up, and it was clear that he was in distress and he was mumbling, and still no one did anything to render aid. And of course, we know that 2 personnel from the Memphis Fire Department have been relieved of their duties as a result of something that they did in the initial patient care here. We are now learning that the Memphis Fire Department has actually gotten hold of that video and will be reviewing it as part of their internal investigation. And I asked the district attorney about all of this, and also just the swift action that we've seen here with the officers being fired, with the charges being filed. And he says that he hopes that this can be a blueprint for the nation. Take a listen to some of what he shared with me.
I know in some of these other similar cases, things dragged out longer, there was less transparency. The model of taking it seriously, moving swiftly but fairly, making decisions as quickly as you can, and then releasing any video in the name of transparency relatively quickly. I think that might be a useful model for other such cases in the future.
And Hallie, I should point out another key question here is whether or not this traffic stop was even justified. The police chief told Tom Yamas earlier today that she has not been able to find any justification that Tyre Nichols was actually driving recklessly. And the district attorney echoed that, saying that they just don't have the chronological footage of that part of the incident to say whether to question the legality of the stop in the first place. Hallie?
But that is part of the key questions on this, Priscilla, right? I mean, because the people involved in this, the officers involved, were apparently part of the Scorpion unit, this specialized unit meant to fight, gang violence, essentially. That's what they typically would handle, gang-related violence. And there's this question of, well, why were they involved with what, by the accounts that we've heard so far, has been described as a traffic stop here? How does that come together? There is more and more scrutiny on this unit. There will be a review, and we here at NBC News are digging further into what this unit did in a city like Memphis.
Right, and that was exactly the question that I put to the district attorney earlier today. Is it normal that this unit would be involved in a traffic stop? And what he said to me is that it may have been the case that initially general assignment officers responded to this call, and then they called for backup, and because those Scorpion unit officials were in the area, those officers were in the area, that then they came over and were a part of this. But what is clear from what the police chief has told us is that those officers were on a 10 when they got there. There was no de-escalation at that point. And that is why now you're hearing people in this community calling for those special units to be disbanded, saying that they always come in super aggressive and in this way that is in no way de-escalating the situation. And we also heard from Attorney Crump earlier today saying that his office is now fielding complaints from people who are saying that this has been common knowledge, that he said that this was a foreseeable thing with the Scorpion unit being involved, because he said that they operate with impunity and that there needs to be a whole investigation into the way they operate and their practices. Hallie?
Priscilla Thompson, thank you for that. Video and 911 calls released today from that night last fall when Paul Pelosi, the husband of former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, was attacked in his home. This is the first video that we're going to show you. Again, this is all just coming out today in California. This is of the suspect. This is surveillance video outside the Pelosi home. You see him here crouched on the ground, going through some bags he brought with him. It looks like he takes something out of the bag, right? Then he's going to something, hammering, like maybe the door handle there, bashing what might be either the door or the window or whatever. Besides, look at that. That's on the right side of your screen. Before eventually getting into the house. You're going to see him basically beat whatever he's beating there on the door, the window, and then get into the home. Next, they'll see the suspect face-to-face with Paul Pelosi and then eventually attacking him with a hammer. We are going to show this to you one time. We are going to tell you that this is disturbing.
Hi, how you doing?
How are you?
What's going on, man?
Everything's good.
Hi. Drop the hammer.
Nope.
Hey.
What is going on right
I'm
now?
not getting any answer on calls.
Again, it is disturbing. Police were responding to that 911 call from Paul Pelosi after this suspect broke in. Audio from that call was also released today. You can hear Paul Pelosi trying to explain what's happening in kind of a cryptic way. Listen.
This is San Francisco Police. Do you need help?
Oh, well, there's a gentleman here just waiting for my wife to come back. Nancy Pelosi.
2:23 and
He's just waiting for her to come back because she's not going to be here for a day, so I guess we'll have to wait.
20
I don't know, what do you think?
18 seconds.
I think everything's good. He thinks everything's good. I've got a problem, but he thinks everything's good.
0
okay.
20,
Call us back if you change your mind.
8
No.
seconds.
This gentleman just came into the house, and he wants to wait here for my wife to come home.
Josh Letterman is joining us now, and you can hear it in that 911 call, Josh, with that dispatcher ultimately credited for figuring out something wasn't what it seemed to be, right, from some of those cryptic hints that Pelosi was dropping. This is the first time that we are seeing some of this evidence related to this case. Talk us through it.
Yeah, this is really filling in the gaps of what we have known about this dramatic scene that unfolded. And you can hear Paul Pelosi there clearly trying not to set off this intruder who is in his home, overhearing his conversation with police, but trying to get the signal to those 911 operator who actually asks him at one point, do you know this man who's in your house? She's clearly trying to figure out if this is some confused person or if there's a real situation here. And Paul Pelosi makes clear he doesn't know this man. He also repeatedly invokes the Pelosi name. He asks about the Capitol Police, trying to set off some alarm bells for 911 operators that there could be a threat here related to his wife, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
We did hear from the former speaker today. She came up and spoke to cameras at the Capitol about this material that was released. And she says she has no intention of ever looking at it.
That's right. Just like the Nichols family said they don't want to see the video of their beloved family member being brutally assaulted. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying she also doesn't want to watch that video as she spoke in a very brief but emotional appearance with reporters. Take a listen.
I have not heard the 911 call. I have not heard the confession. I have not seen the break-in, and I have absolutely no intention of seeing the deadly assault on my husband's wife. I won't be making any more statements about this case.
And Hallie, Congresswoman Pelosi was also asked how her husband, Paul, is doing. She said it's been a slow road to recovery. She anticipates it'll be another 3 months or so until he's able to make a full recovery.
Josh Letterman live for us there in California. A lot of developments on that story today. Josh, thank you. Also, some developments in the world of politics, because in just the last hour, former President Trump is congratulating Ronna McDaniel, on her win as Republican National Committee chair. This was in question. Mr. Trump had supported her push. She is going to lead the party now through the 2024 presidential election. And if you're like, wait a second, we just got done with the midterms. Why should I care about this right now? Well, because what happened today could be a preview of what's to come for Republicans in 2024. In part because Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, long speculated to be running for president, to be considering a run, created some drama when he threw his support behind the person challenging McDaniel, calling for change. Because the vote today was a secret ballot, which means nobody knows how anybody voted, but everyone was watching to see just how much sway DeSantis' endorsement could have over his party. Joining us now, Vaughn Hilliard. Vaughn, not a huge shocker that it's going to be Ron and McDaniel, but talk about how this does not end infighting in the party. That is what you are hearing, and our team is hearing from members of the Republican National Committee who say there is still some rebuilding that needs to happen.
Right. And, I was talking to an RNC member just yesterday and said even if Ronna McDaniel pulled off the win, that the voice of Harmy Dillon and those who supported her bid, they would not go silent. And making the case, particularly over criticism of how money was spent by the RNC over the course of the 3 terms that Ronna McDaniel has been the chair. There's frustration. They raised $400 million, yet had little to show in terms of electoral victories. They lost the U.S. Senate and only narrowly won the U.S. House, and that comes after losing the White House in 2020 here. And this is not unlike, though, Hallie, what we saw with the Kevin McCarthy speaker race. Harmy Daniel was challenging her arguably from the right. She had the allies of folks like Charlie Kirk. Carrie Lake was here in California standing alongside Harmy Dillon, and they were really pressing the case that there was a grassroots desire for change. And instead of, it wasn't about necessarily moderating the message or changing the messengers, but instead executing in terms of turning out voters on behalf of the Republican candidates who were on the ballot in 2022. Yet what you saw was just about 1/3 of the members here voted for Harmy Dillon, and Ronna McDaniel is heading here for another term in which she will oversee a presidential primary process as well over the course of the next year, Hallie.
Presidential primary process that we are seeing on full display this weekend with the former president set to hit the trail, really his first big campaign stop since he announced his candidacy.
Right, and I'll actually be taking a red-eye to get to South Carolina, which is going to be one of his stops tomorrow. He will be in New Hampshire as well, of course. These are 2 early states here. These are his first campaign stops outside of Florida, which he now calls home here. He is going to be with the likes of not only the South Carolina governor, Henry McMaster, but also with Senator Lindsey Graham. And that's particularly a state where you have 2 elected officials, one current, Tim Scott, the senator, as well as one former, the former governor, Nikki Haley, who are also considering presidential runs. So this is big for Donald Trump to begin to actually hit the circuit here. And now you hear, of course, Ron DeSantis is still considering a presidential bid. But we're looking right now at conversations about debates beginning about 6-7 months from now. I was told here in California that they're looking at August debates. So we're not too far off from serious conversations and serious debates in a Republican field that is expected to grow much beyond the likes of the former President Donald Trump, Hallie.
Vaughn Hilliard live for us there in Dana Point. Vaughn, thank you. The FDA tonight laying out a plan that could make it easier for some men who have sex with men to donate blood after decades of pressure from LGBTQ plus equality and medical groups. If this is approved, and it's not approved yet, but if it is, gay and bisexual men in monogamous relationships will be allowed to give blood. And any person who wants to donate blood is now going to get asked some detailed questions about your sex life, regardless of your gender or your sexual identification. It's a move toward tearing down a Reagan-era policy at the start of the AIDS pandemic, when it was mistakenly, incorrectly thought that only infected gay men. I spoke with Dr. Dimitri Daskalakis, a top White House medical advisor and an expert on HIV/AIDS, about why the rules, even now, are still different for gay men. Why do gay men have to be abstinent for 3 months or in a monogamous relationship to donate blood, but it doesn't seem like there is that same requirement for heterosexual people?
So that's actually the crux of the problem. So I'm looking at this sort of historically. Early on during the dawn of HIV/AIDS in the United States, there was concern about the safety of the blood supply. And really, technology hadn't come to the point where blood was screened in a way that would really ensure safety. So as we've moved forward with more technology and also great ability to forecast how we can predict risk based on behavior rather than identity, we are here today with proposed guidance that really changes the game in terms of who can donate blood.
Dr. John Torres is with us now. And Dr. John, I also asked Dr. Daskalakis about, is this decision, in his view, because of the medical landscape currently? There was that big blood shortage last year. Is it because of changing social norms, or is it a little of both? He says it's a little of both. Explain why the FDA is making this move now.
And yeah, that's right. It's a combination of a lot of factors. Number one, blood supplies are down. We have a shortage because of the pandemic, but also because there are time periods when people don't donate. On top of that, policy is now catching up with science. And our own Joe Fryer actually sat down and talked with Dr. Peter Marks from the FDA. And here's what he had to say about it.
We will continue to work to try to make sure that we have policies that allow everyone who wants to donate blood to be able to donate blood within what the science allows, to make sure that the blood supply remains safe.
And right now, even over a few years ago, we have a better understanding of the science behind HIV. We have a better testing for the blood supply. And so these restrictions don't need to be there anymore. And that's the direction the FDA is at least hoping to take over the next few months, Hallie.
There are still some real questions here, right, though, about the stigma that this still puts on gay men if they want to donate blood.
There is questions about that, and that is one of the things that some critics are saying, that they didn't necessarily go far enough. But what Peter Marks actually said, and some others, is that this is a step in that direction. They're going to continue to look at the science and get to that point where they can finally say, okay, we make sure the blood supply is safe. We let everybody who wants to donate, and getting that combination together, Hallie, that's the key here.
Dr. John Torres, thank you very much. In the last couple of hours, we're hearing from former Vice President Mike Pence for the very first time on camera publicly about that classified stuff that wound up at his home in Indiana. He is kind of owning it. He's basically saying, yeah, I messed up. Watch.
Those classified documents should not have been in my personal residence. Mistakes were made. And I take full responsibility.
That's as two sources tell our team that the National Archives is calling reps from the 9 people you see on your screen here, the living vice presidents and presidents, except for Jimmy Carter. He actually signed the law that gives the National Archives the power to hold on to any West Wing documents, but it didn't go into effect until 1981 when he was out of office. The archives wanted to know, hey, everybody triple check, basically. Carol Lee is outside the White House. And Carol, let's start with what we heard just late today from former Vice President Mike Pence, who in a lengthy statement here on camera publicly talked about how he believes in the importance of maintaining security for classified documents and, as we said, owned the mess up.
Yeah, Hallie, it's really a different tone than we've heard from former President Trump and President Biden. You know, former President Trump has said that these are his documents. He's fought to keep them, and which is dramatically different. And you have President Biden, who said he was surprised to learn that there were classified documents in his possession and that there's no there. So there hasn't been that sort of apology. President Biden's legal team has said this was inadvertent and it was a mistake, but the president hasn't said that. So that sets Mike Pence apart. Another thing that sets him apart is he doesn't have a special counsel investigation into his handling of classified documents, with both former President Trump and President Biden have. So, you know, it puts, I think, is going to put President Biden certainly in the spotlight in terms of whether he's going to issue some sort of similar statement publicly.
Talk about the idea of the National Archives now asking these former presidents and VPs to go back and like double check, basically, because former presidents, most of them have their own libraries with somebody who gets security clearance. But there's a lot of stuff. Ex-vice presidents can take materials where they want. Explain how this works, bigger picture.
So the big picture is that the archives is saying, well, obviously there's a problem here. And so they've asked all the former, except for Jimmy Carter, the former presidents and vice presidents, to go look through their things and make sure that they don't have any A, classified documents, and B, any government documents. It's not just classified documents that belong to the government. And so they're saying, look through your personal stuff. Maybe things that you thought were personal, they really aren't, and they actually belong to the government. And so they're going about this process to try to get their arms around what seems to be a growing problem, Hallie.
Carol Lee, live for us there outside the White House. Carol, thank you very much. Today, the country's second biggest oil company, Chevron, is announcing it is breaking records, reporting more than $36 billion in profit this past year, mostly because of high oil prices driven up in large part by the war in Ukraine. Look at this graphic. That is double what they made in 2021. Does that say it all right there? It comes as other oil and gas giants are expected to announce that they also brought in record-breaking amounts of money last year, a combined profit of $190 billion, including Chevron's number when results come out in the next couple of days, according to some of the smart analysts and people who watch these companies. President Biden has been saying he is not happy about these profits, accusing these companies of benefiting from the war in Ukraine, of not lowering gas prices here in this country. He's accused these companies of making more money than God. Investopedia editor-in-chief Caleb Silver is joining us now. Caleb, it's good to be with you. A lot of, I think when people hear some of this, they think about their own bill that they pay to fill up their tank for their car, right? And how much it had been. Obviously, gas prices went down. We don't know how long they're going to stay down. They may go back up. We're almost at a year into this war in Ukraine here, this Russian invasion of Ukraine. What is going to make a difference as it relates to oil prices?
Yeah, well, oil prices, believe it or not, are down 35% from when Russia invaded Ukraine. So we had that huge spike, which drove oil prices to about $125 a barrel. They've come down meaningfully for a bunch of different reasons. Demand is part of it. But these oil companies are in the business of making money, not lowering our gas bill, not lowering how much it costs for us to fill up. So they are doing what they're supposed to do by their shareholders. And by the way, their shareholders are some of the biggest mutual fund companies in America.
Does the pressure from the White House, does the pressure from the Biden administration have any impact, do you think?
No, it doesn't, because the oil lobbies are among the biggest in the country. They spend a lot of money defending the oil industry, and oil prices are set by the market. But also, don't forget, there's OPEC out there and OPEC Plus. So it's the cartel, including Saudi Arabia and several other countries. The United States is not part of that. We export into the global market. We have to import from the global market. So prices are subject to supply and demand.
Some of these energy companies have been under pressure from activists to invest properly in cleaner energy, especially during the pandemic when there was way less, as you know, demand for oil. Given the profits that we're seeing now, is it realistic to think that green energy is on their radar?
It is, because they know eventually they're going to have to make that transition, just because it's a finite resource, and that's the way the world is working, plus climate change. So you hear pledges of about $10 billion by companies like Chevron for over the next 5 years. You know the number they made in terms of profit, $36 billion. $10 billion over 5 years is not a lot, yet they have to take these steps. Activists, environmentalists, and others would like them to take it a lot faster, given the state of the climate right now and given these prices.
Caleb Silver, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Ahead this weekend, places along the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes should expect to see some snow over the next couple of days. Dangerous conditions and now deadly, because today 4 people were killed. Others were hurt after a van crashed in Iowa when a driver lost control on really slick roads. It's happening as we're also getting some new pictures showing just how intense the blizzard in December was in parts of New York State. This is some new body cam footage that's just been released from Buffalo Police. Look at this. You're looking at officers. I mean, they are... God, you can't even see, right? Because it's kind of a whiteout condition. Stranded people, they're responding to calls of people stuck because of the wind, because of the snow. It's hard to see ahead. I want to show you one rescue of a woman right before they took her to the hospital. Look at this.
What's going on?
Hi.
You okay?
Oh my God, I've been stuck in the traffic. I'm so happy to
Are you in a medical emergency? Do you need to be in a hospital or no?
I'm having chest pain.
It's really scary stuff to see. The West is expected to get hit by the snow this weekend, with Montana, Wyoming, Colorado expecting up to 20 inches in some places. We'll keep you updated. Coming up here on the show, we're also getting a look at the new evidence in Alec Murdaugh's double murder trial. The prosecutors say he did right after killing his wife and son, in their view. Plus, Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh trashing U.S. News Law School rankings. We'll tell you what he's saying coming up in the 5 Things. The jury in the South's so-called trial of the century is getting to hear Alec Murdaugh's first conversation with a South Carolina state police officer, along with a few expert witnesses. Remember, Murdaugh, who was once a big-time lawyer, is accused of killing his own wife and son. And the big question today, why did it look like he didn't have any blood on him the night they were killed? One of the prosecutors, in a tense moment, repeatedly asking that to a police officer today. Watch.
How would you describe the defendant's hands when you saw him when you were interviewing him? How would you describe his hands?
They were clean. Clean.
How would you describe his arms?
They were clean.
How would you describe his t-shirt?
Clean.
How would you describe his shorts?
Clean.
It's important because Murdaugh allegedly told investigators he checked Maggie and Paul Murdaugh to see if they had a pulse. He says he even turned them over. Katie Beck is in Walterboro, South Carolina. And Katie, listen, some of this stuff is difficult to talk about. Walk us through what we're hearing in court, what we're seeing as far as new evidence that they're showing in court. Nothing graphic, but kind of giving us, and importantly, jurors, a sense of the scene.
Well, we were able to get our eyes on some footage today, Hallie, of a conversation that took place between investigators and Murdaugh inside a patrol vehicle on that property just after investigators arrive on the night of the murder. And he is asked those pivotal questions you were just talking about his clothing and about what he did to find signs of life. He tells the investigators on tape, yes, I flipped them over. I tried to find a pulse. If you flipped these two bodies over, prosecutors are arguing you would have blood on your hands, you would have blood on your clothes. There would be some evidence that you made contact with these bodies. So they asked those questions in a pointed way over and over and over again to say to the jury, hey, look, this is inconsistent. If you're going to believe his story, which you can clearly hear him tell, I checked for signs of life, I touched the bodies, then why wasn't there blood anywhere to be found on him? Why was he wearing a crisp white T-shirt that, according to one witness, looked like it could have just come out of the laundry? That's exactly what the witness said. Yeah, it might have just come out of the clean laundry. They're also inferring that perhaps he changed clothes, that this was possibly a switch after the fact. So these are seeds that the prosecution is planting. The defense had used these clean clothes just days earlier to defend him, saying if he had done this murder, he would have been covered in head to toe with blood splatter. There was no blood on him. So both of them are using this evidence for different purposes, but it is a strong point to the jury today answering that question. Why isn't there a speck of blood if you had contact with both of these victims?
I wonder, Katie, how much jurors are paying attention to the way that Murdaugh is receiving some of this, some of what is being shown in court, because there's some video of Murdaugh. I mean, he's clearly, red, rocking back and forth, shaking. This is a moment seeing crime scene photos of his son when those were shown to the jury.
Right.
How much is that playing?
Yeah,
is the jury glancing over,
Yeah, especially, Hallie, you pointed it out, when they are talking about his son Paul's injuries in graphic detail, we almost always see Alec Murdaugh have some type of emotional response, the rocking back and forth, the crying, the wiping underneath his glasses. That happens almost every time they reference Paul's injuries in any type of graphic description. But what the jury's going to have to reconcile is watching him cry at the defense table and then hearing from witnesses on the stand that they didn't see a tear from him at the crime scene. Now, people do respond differently in traumatic situations, and, people are in shock. They don't always respond right away with tears. You can't always predict what people are going to do. But the bottom line is it is going to be something that sort of plants in their head. Like, we've heard witness after witness say, yeah, he was distraught, but we never saw tears. We never heard anyone, we never saw him crying. And then now seeing this man cry daily at the defense table, that's something they're going to have to sort out when they decide a verdict.
Katie Beck, live for us, watching all of it there in Walterboro, South Carolina. And Katie, thank you. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, in Jerusalem, a shooter has killed 7 people and seriously hurt 3 others in a terror attack today. It happened after a deadly IDF raid in the West Bank about 24 hours ago that left 9 Palestinians dead. A 10th person was killed in a separate incident the same day. Number 2, second gentleman Doug Emhoff visiting the Auschwitz death camp in Poland to mark Holocaust Remembrance Day today. This, of course, the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz by Soviet troops in 1945. More than 1 million people were killed by the Nazis at that location alone. In total, about 6 million Jews were murdered during the Holocaust. Number 3, Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh is joining the, let's call it, chorus of criticism against the annual U.S. News Law School rankings. He says it is highly problematic, talking about that at an event at Notre Dame Law School. It comes after an avalanche of dozens of law schools, 36 of them, said they're no longer going to participate in giving U.S. News information about the rankings program because they think it's just so problematic. Number 4, Hong Kong labeled CBD and its derivatives a dangerous drug today, putting it on the level, CBD, of heroin and cocaine. Remember, CBD can be sold pretty much anywhere in this country right now, but the move is keeping with Hong Kong's zero-tolerance policy toward drugs of any kind. Number 5, CVS and Walmart will shorten the opening hours of their pharmacies starting in March. They say they're dealing with a nationwide shortage of staff. Walmart is going to start closing its pharmacies 2 hours earlier, 7 p.m. CVS is going to start cutting hours at about 6,000 locations. If you need your prescription pills filled, you got to check the timing. Pay attention. A team of archaeologists in Egypt now unveiling some new discoveries that they say are more than 4,000 years old. Among them, a tomb belonging to what they're calling a keeper of secrets, along with one of the oldest Egyptian artifacts ever found, a mummy of a man wrapped in gold leaves. Megan Fitzgerald has the incredible details.
Hallie, good to be with you as always. Want to tell you about some incredible news coming out of Egypt. The Egyptian excavation team made some incredible discoveries. Now, this is a team that's led by Dr. Zahi Hawass. He is a world-renowned archaeologist, and some of what he and his team discovered include tombs. They uncovered mummies along with several statues. Now, I got to tell you about this one particular artifact that's really mind-blowing. I mean, take a look at this picture. When they opened up this tomb, they found this mummy. What you're looking at is more than 4,000 years old. They believe that this is the oldest and most complete mummy that they have seen to date. It's just incredible because it's so old and you can still make out the fact this is a human body. And also, they also uncovered several statues, including one where they believe it's a husband with his wife and his daughter. But going back to that mummy, I want you to listen to what Dr. Hawass had to say about the moments he made this discovery with his team. Take a listen.
To find a mummy sealed in a sealed sarcophagus dated back 4,300 years ago, you have to talk about the moment before I put my head inside with a flashlight. This is a moment for me I will never forget in my life.
Now, the area where they made these discoveries is the Saqqara area. This, of course, is right near the Step Pyramid. Of course, that is the oldest pyramid in Egypt. They believe that they stumbled upon an area that was a cemetery, which is why they've uncovered all of these tombs along with these statues. This is just the beginning of what they're calling significant work and discoveries in the beginning of 2023. Hallie?
Our thanks to Megan Fitzgerald for that. When we come back, the DOJ announcing some new charges in a murder-for-hire plot, why investigators say 3 men were targeting a U.S. journalist. Plus, what is up with Elon Musk? Meeting with top leaders on Congress, at the White House. We'll tell you what he hopes to do in the Capitol when we come back. It hasn't rained, but entire lawns are underwater in Massachusetts today. We'll explain what's going on later in the local. But first, the Justice Department charging 3 men in a murder-for-hire plot today. They say 3 members of an Eastern European crime group tried to assassinate a prominent journalist who was critical of the Iranian government. Attorney General Merrick Garland says the group had ties to Iran, that these 3 guys are now in custody. Listen.
These charges arise out of an ongoing investigation into the government of Iran's efforts to assassinate on U.S. soil a journalist, author, and human rights activist who is a U.S. citizen of Iranian origin.
The journalist is not being identified by the Justice Department, but apparently wrote critically about how Iran treats women and protesters, along with some other issues. Big tech deciding that the best defense is a good offense, with Twitter CEO Elon Musk making the rounds on Capitol Hill today. 2 sources tell NBC News that Musk met with a group of House Republicans, including Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan, Oversight Chair James Comer, after spending some time with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy about 24 hours ago. The Biden administration confirming Musk also popped by the White House today to talk about one of his other businesses, EVs, specifically Tesla. And TikTok bigwigs and their lobbyists are spending some time here in D.C., too, trying to fight these calls to ban the app in the U.S. over its Chinese ownership. They're calling it Project Texas. Garrett Haake knows something about Texas. He knows something about TikTok. And he knows, do you know anything about Elon Musk? Because we're wondering, like, what's his end game here? What's he up to with all these meetings with these Republicans?
Well, it's a great question. Musk and Kevin McCarthy go back a long way. They've known each other something like a decade, from just Musk being a Californian like McCarthy. They've talked about tech issues. He's done political events with McCarthy in the past. They're buds. And so the conversation last night started around McCarthy's birthday, but it ended up including a whole bunch of other issues at which he's a central player for this Republican conference. They want to talk about big tech censorship. They want to talk about the so-called Twitter files that Musk has been behind. And they want to talk about how social media is used going forward. Here's some of what McCarthy said about their meeting after it happened this afternoon.
We talked about making sure Twitter is fair on all sides. He wants to have a level playing field for everybody to have a voice. He's really defending the First Amendment, and we had a really good discussion.
So, Hallie, among the other lawmakers that, Musk met with, if he's meeting with Jim Jordan, if he's meeting with James Comer, these are folks who are going to be running big-time investigations in this Congress. I expect to see Musk and Twitter at the center of those panels' work going forward.
So, we talked about it. These companies Musk doing some defense by going on offense, it seems. Same with TikTok and this idea of Project Texas, considering bipartisan frustration, I think. Some pushes from both sides of the aisle who have concerns about TikTok. We know that 30 state governments have banned TikTok on their devices in the state in some form or fashion. What is TikTok going to do? What can they do to change minds here?
Well, look, this starts during the Trump administration when Donald Trump tried to have TikTok banned outright. He wasn't able to do that. This issue shifted to the back burner for a while. Then the move to ban TikTok really picked up steam at the end of last year. You saw Congress trying to ban it from federal devices. You see all these states trying to ban it locally, or at least from lawmakers' devices in different states. There's a big movement afoot here. What TikTok has done is say they're starting this so-called Project Texas, where they would try to move all their U.S. operations fully onto U.S. soil. They're saying we'll only have American employees. We'll have a server farm somewhere in the U.S. We'll have an American company like Oracle run it for us, and see if that's enough to appease regulators, appease the feds, because the other possibilities are that they might have to divest, sell the business to someone else, or potentially get shut down. They feel like their back is up against the wall. They're trying to whip support right now around Washington, D.C. It's going to be very interesting to see if they can gather it, because every week that goes on, we're hearing more and more lawmakers who had been TikTok curious become perhaps TikTok skeptical. It appears to be moving only one direction right now, Hallie, and for the company, that's not going to work.
Who's going from TikTok curious to like TikTok diehard, right? I mean, there's not, as you point out, there's not many lawmakers who are going in that direction. There's just not.
Well, but Hallie, who is going in that direction are businesses, and I think that's the tension here. Every major media company, including this one, uses TikTok in a major way. So there is some tension here between what government wants here and what the businesses that have come to rely on TikTok to reach their customers and to sell ads are doing. Watch that space too.
It's a great point. Garrett Haake, take your half sip and start your weekend. Thank you. Appreciate you. Coming up, the biggest night in football is almost here with the last 4 teams, including the Eagles. Ever heard of them? Fighting it out for a Super Bowl spot this weekend. We'll take you to a local Philly bar with how my people are feeling ahead of the game. Plus, the incredible moment that an abandoned dog was reunited with its owner. Get your tissues out. Don't say I didn't warn you. That's in the local. So by the time you and I talk again on Monday, we're going to know which 2 teams will be facing off in Super Bowl 57 with big showdowns coming on Conference Championship weekend. In the NFC, it's the San Francisco 49ers who have the audacity to take on the Eagles in the early game, 3 p.m. Eastern. Late game is the defending AFC champs, the Cincinnati Bengals, up against the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium, or maybe it's Burrowhead Stadium. That's what Cincinnati's mayor is calling it, paying homage to the team's quarterback in this little feud that they're having with the Kansas City mayor. There's apparently barbecue on the line for whoever wins, but who cares about that game? I mean, whatever. We'll get to that game. Let's talk about the Eagles with my girl, Deanna Durante, a reporter for our Philly station, WCAU. She's out of Monco.
I think you're getting a little glimpse.
Give me the vibe check. Go. Take it away.
I think you're getting a little glimpse of the excitement here.
I love this so much.
Hallie, can you hear him out here? One more time. I don't know if they do this in Bucks County where you're from, but here in Montgomery County, they do cheer for their Eagles. I'm just kidding. My mom's from Bucks County. I know they love them there too, Hallie. I want to introduce you to somebody else who really loves the Eagles. This is Weston. He was just here for dinner with his family. We're at the Fireside Bar and Grill in Ambler. Weston, who's your favorite player?
AJ Brown.
Why?
He's fast.
Is that what your dad told you to say? He's standing right here?
Yeah.
My man's fast. Well, thank you for telling everybody. What do you want to say to the Eagles?
Let's go Birds.
Let's go Birds. That's what's happening a lot of time now. There are a lot of all day, almost every day since we entered the playoffs here. Of course, the game is Sunday, but as you can tell, people are partying here already. Here in Ambler, they're gearing up for all their specials. Everybody's ready for the game a couple days early.
Not even a little surprised. I'm not even a little surprised that the bar is packed, that everybody's got food. Props to you for the Brian Dawkins jersey, by the way. Like, you have inspired me. Let's see in a couple of weeks what happens here. And let's just say no jinxies. No jinxies, right? Like this, there's a lot on the line here. We can't take anything for granted. Deanna Durante. Deanna Durante, it is so. I know. It's okay.
I'm trying to answer your question. I can't hear you.
Well, there wasn't even a question. It was just me riffing because this is so amazing.
What you wanted to know there?
I just was saying, it's amazing. No jinxies. Like, we gotta get out there and do it on Sunday. You can't take it for granted.
Well, we have to, and you know, this team is very different. I mean, obviously, people like Weston, they don't remember what it was like, you know, growing up and, you know, hoping, and now here we are 3 times in 20 years, possibly this happening for us. And this team is really so special in the fact that how they connect with the fans. You know, they are available on social media. They speak to them. They show up at events. It's hard not to really want them to go all the way. And if you don't want them to go all the way, you clearly aren't from this area. So.
Deanna Durante, thank you so much. It is so good to see you. You have made my entire day. Thank you, thank you. Can we just applaud her command of the bar, shushing them, bringing up their audio? Like, I am obsessed with that, and we just appreciate you being on with us. This is the beauty, folks, of having your own show. Like, you get to pull in people who cover the teams that you love. So, yay. Thank you, Deanna. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. From our East Coast Bureau, check this out. A bridge and entire lawns are underwater, not because of the rain, but because a dam broke in Massachusetts today. Police warn there could be even more flooding if, like, the tunnels underground can't absorb enough water from the flood. You've got teams on the ground trying to help people get out, recover, etc. No word yet on why this dam burst. From our Midwest Bureau, participants of drag shows in North Dakota could face up to 5 years in prison after lawmakers moved forward a bill that would ban adult-oriented performances in front of kids and in public. This is the first win for the state's conservative lawmakers and the series of bills aimed at restricting gender expression for LGBTQ+ people in that state. From our Southern Bureau, an animal shelter in Tennessee is launching a fund to try to support pet owners facing financial hardship after they found a dog separated from her owner, a mother of 2 experiencing homelessness. The shelter shared the note to Facebook, which said her name was Lola, a great pup. Look at that great pup who loves to be loved on. People locally saw the note and then did something about it, ultimately helping the shelter, look at this, reunite Lola with her mama. That is so sweet. Still to come, you haven't seen The Last of Us, HBO's hit series, getting greenlit already for season number 2 after only 2 episodes. But critics say it is the beginning, potentially, of a new era in the TV business. We're going to talk about it. A potential breakthrough in the TV business with HBO's new series, The Last of Us. Today, announcing it's already getting a second season after only 2 episodes have aired. So what is the big deal here? What sets this apart? Listen, it's based off a video game. It's the journey of a man who's asked to help a younger teenager get to safety because she could be the key in fighting an infection that's turning people into zombies. Gamers are kind of loving with how well the show matches the original gameplay. You're looking at a scene from the show on top here. Underneath, that's the actual game. I mean, look at that. That's pretty close. HBO says this show is already breaking records. They're saying the second episode saw 22% more viewers than the one before. And it's not like episode 1 did bad. It was the second highest premiere of any HBO show besides the Game of Dragons one. Or not Game of Thrones, obviously, House of Dragon. I want to bring in Bravo TV's Darren Karp. So, Darren, I think the important thing is here is the business piece of this, right? The thing that is so unique about this show. Critics love it, gamers love it, but this is breaking some new ground.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's kind of bringing in new audiences. Gamers are going to game and TV people are going to TV, and now we kind of get to bridge those gaps. Everyone is so excited. To your point, it looks exactly like the video game. And I think with, failures like Resident Evil on Netflix, they were trying to kind of do a little bit too much. This does it exactly right, and people are loving that cinematic feel that not only the video originally gave us in 2013, but that HBO is delivering on every single episode. I mean, it already got renewed, and it's only been 2 episodes out right now, Hallie.
Does HBO need this to be a hit for their streaming business? Or do they have enough cushion that this is just icing on the cake?
No, I think they absolutely need this to be a hit. I mean, yes, House of Dragon was absolutely incredible, but they haven't had any really major things come to fruition recently, and this one absolutely needs to sustain, which it looks like it will. I mean, granted, it's already renewed for season 2, but they absolutely need this. They need a strong slate to keep coming back. They've kind of, gotten rid of other shows that they had, and to be fair, There's so much competition right now for TV that everyone needs a hit. Everyone needs multiple hits in order to sustain those types of audiences. But I think this is a really good sign for HBO, and I think this is a really good sign it's just a streamer standing on its own.
Do you think there's going to be more video games turned into TV shows? Like, because of the success of this one, is that going to be the model moving forward? Or not the whole model, but you think about how sequels are so big now because we know sequels do well. Same thing with this?
Right. I mean, everything's derivative of everything else, so I think people would be kind of dumb not to really kind of take on this pattern that obviously seems successful. But this one really is in a category of its own. I think more people are going to want to do this and adapt it, but I think it's the way it's going to be filmed that really people are going to start to emulate and really try and, you know, map out because this is just absolutely beautifully done, and it's just like the video game.
Super blockbuster, too. Darren Karp, always good to see you. Thank you, Darren. Appreciate it. Thanks. That does it for us this hour. We'll have more for you here Monday, same time, same place. Thank you, as always, for being with us. More coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.